Hi, I'm Sam. About 5 years ago, my whole world was turned upside down. More on that later, but let's just say in what was supposed to be the happiest time in my life, I felt totally lost. You're listening to or watching my show, where we'll be talking with friends in healthcare, wellness, and holistic healing about real self-care. I'm not talking about pedicures and bubble baths. We're talking true acts of care to maintain our physical and mental health so we can truly live fearlessly and fulfilled. Say it with me. Self-care is my job. We're here for another episode of Self-Care is My Job. Hello, everyone. If you are listening, I think that you might be able to drop some comments, and I might be able to see them in StreamYard. I'm still learning, but I think so. But you might need to, there might be a area where you need to give it permission. So I'm just putting it out there in case anybody has any questions for Charmaine, and you're just burning questions. You must know you might need to give StreamYard permission to send them over to us. Real quick, I'm gonna pop on my, our page, and I'm gonna tag Charmaine, so everything we're doing is on her page as well. And then I'm gonna close Facebook because I think that's why there's an echo. And this is how we learn things in life.
That's right. One step at a time.
Right. So how are you doing today, Charmaine? Like, I'll just say hi to get us started while I'm doing this.
Fantastic. So I'm located in South Dakota, and we have a nice sunny day here in January, which is always pleasant. I'm a little worried about what February might bring us because January has been quite pleasant. So we'll see what happens. Well, we might get all the cold next month, and it is what it is.
Did you guys got some snow as of yet? I'm assuming.
Oh, a little bit, yeah, maybe a couple inches on the ground. Nothing too big yet. And I should knock on some wood for that comment because I probably just.
I mean, I'm feeling the same. I'm like, okay, it's supposed to snow here on Tuesday. No idea how much, and I'm like, oh, I'm always between. I'm always like, oh, but it's so pretty, and then it's like, oh, but I have to take my kids outside to play in the snow. Like, I don't want to be outside in it. Like, I'll look. I like snow for skiing, and that's pretty much it. Like, and to look at it. I don't need to be throwing snowballs around and stuff and rolling around in snow. It's unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what age I was where that shifted, because I remember being outside all day long, even in the snow.
Right.
Like they would be begging us to come in, and our boots and everything would be so wet. We're like putting the like the bread bag liners in our boots to like try to keep our next pair of socks warm, like from getting wet. And I don't know what age I was when we stopped that, but it was just like, I'm now over it. Don't want any part of it. But
I think it was like, for me, it was a temperature thing. Like I don't remember, I don't remember what age, but for me, I remember being like, oh no, like I'm freaking cold now. Like I don't need this in my life. I'm cold. And it's like your tolerance for discomfort starts to dwindle a bit. You're like, no, I don't need this. But all different personalities, right? I'm pretty sure my sister would have been the complete opposite. She would have been out there like rolling in it. And I'm like, I'll just be in here reading. Anyway, so I'm super excited to get into it today. Me and Charmaine have some mutual friends that so mainly Josh. We'll have to throw a big thank you and a kiss out for Josh Bell if he's listening or if he listens at some point, but that's our connection, right? Our main connection. But then it's really nice that not only have I been able to like get to know that whole crew of guys, and then you've been working with Zeph and like all this stuff too. So I just like that. I love the idea that like you're all the way out there, and I just feel like you're right here. You're in my circle. So, and not only that, but we're very aligned, no pun intended. We're very aligned in our work and in our views as far as taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves, healing ourselves, all that good stuff. So Charmaine is a yoga teacher, an author, a speaker, a Reiki practitioner, healers. Like, she's got so much to offer us. So Charmaine, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself. She's also a mother of 3. God bless you. And yeah, tell us about you and how you got here. Like, how did this all happen for you? I got to know.
Well, the good Lord and my mama, but
that's it.
Something happened there.
Bless.
Something
Hashtag
there.
bless.
Yeah, so I'm Charmaine. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm the founder of Wildly Aligned Wellness, which really came from years of personal trauma healing. Doing my own shadow work, sitting in my own uncomfortable areas and working through it. And I realized that while I grew up in a very Catholic household, and then of course as I grew and changed and became my own person, I started to look into other aspects of religion and spirituality and care, and how different cultures see women, how they see and work through postpartum, things like that. And I realized that so much of my personal feminine divinity had been somewhere erased in history. And I had severe postpartum depression with my second child. And, to be perfectly honest, my ex-husband at the time point blank said, it was all in my head. It's not a real thing. And when you feel that so deeply that something is wrong, and someone that you trust does not see that, you either fall really deep in a hole, which I did, and then you hit rock bottom and you start digging your ass back out of it. And I realized all of these learned behaviors that I wanted to change for my own children. I want my sons to be gentlemen and be prepared for the things that they're going to find in life. I want my daughter to be prepared and know that she is just as powerful as any other human being, and gender has nothing to do with that. So that's how it all began. And I realized that my views were wild compared to other people's views. So wildly aligned was where my heart was set. And that's really how it began.
Yeah, I love that. And then just bringing in slowly but surely, like, all your different modalities and your healing, approaches. I'm so with you. Like, I'm so there with you. And the same concept, like when I had my first daughter, and it's funny, I'm only recently coming to a place where I'm like saying it like point blank. Like, I might not have been dealing with specifically postpartum depression, although it's so, it's so blurred, I really don't know. But like, I was definitely dealing with a ton of postpartum anxiety, which is, like with the labeling and, putting everybody in this category or that category, I don't feel it's really that necessary. But the point is exactly what you said. If you're dealing with something and nobody can understand it, which is okay, because it's not, it's not abnormal for somebody to not necessarily be able to fully put themselves in your shoes, but to not be heard, to not be to not be supported, and to not be held where you are comfortable, at least addressing some of these things and vocalizing some of these things too. So I think just the mention of it normalizes that discussion, that openness, and it's so necessary. But at the same time, even going through something like that, that's obviously like a shift into a little bit of an awakening. Like you said, like you hit rock, like, where you're like, well, I have no choice but to make changes here, because otherwise I don't want to be here, kind of thing. Like, like, I'm not going to be able to show up for my children if I don't make some changes. For me, it was like radical self-care. And then as far as so radical self-care, which included yoga, included music, because that really unknowingly at the time for me was a form of spiritual self-care where like I was just doing it for me and not having this concept of like, oh, well, are you going to have a band? Are you going to record music? Are you going to be famous? Are you going to make money? Are you going to sell your music? Are you going to have it as a career? So coming away from that and just doing something creative that was for you. But also the journaling. Like I've always been it's so transformational for me that I can't even sometimes verbalize it to people. Like, but I'm kind of a mess with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like stream of consciousness, brain dump type of stuff. And sometimes some good shit comes out. Sometimes like sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes something that doesn't look like it was a brain dump comes out, but sometimes it's just a straight up like detox of emotional and spiritual shit.
No,
So
I agree.
talk to me a little bit about that from your end. Yeah.
So I started journaling when I was young, because I have always felt a little different. It was my, writing it down for myself and working through emotions and things for myself was kind of my safe place.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that changes, with time, social lives in college, things like that. I didn't maybe do as much journaling. But for me, it was always this place to come back, like coming home. I could always go to my journal. I could always just dump everything out. And through my own traumas, I have done talk therapy in the past. I don't currently do it. And of course, journaling is one of the number one things any therapist is going to tell you to start doing, because it does help you to start seeing triggers, your own triggers. If you have a day and you're journaling and something comes up and you're like, I'm pissed off because this, that, and the other. And it comes up a week later and it's the same person who pissed you off, or it's the same trigger that hit. There are those ways to go back and start pinpointing feelings, emotions, and triggers. And so I learned about that early on. But as I moved away from talk therapy and started getting more into personal spirituality aspects for myself, I also found that it helped me to connect both to my spirituality, to gratitude, for personal forgiveness, which is huge. Being able to see those things about myself from my earlier years, and then being able to write out like, this, I know what I did. I remember why I did it. And I release the guilt and shame that I hold around that, because I did the best that I could at the time. And I can do better now because I know better. And just being able to have that platform to write it all out and be like, period, the end, it's done. Close the book.
Yeah.
So
literally
that's how
like
I
a detox.
Yeah.
That's
and at
great.
one point,
Like for me, it all comes back to self-awareness. So like once that shit's down on paper, and it can be daunting to scratch the surface of some of this stuff that might be bothering you. If you sense that there's a pattern though, you start to just become aware every time it comes up. So like I feel like, yeah, it could go either way for me. Either it's like exactly what you just said, where it's like all just out in the open. And now I can say goodbye to any guilt and shame that I have around something that happened, or whatever emotions that are still so repetitive and like attached to that thing or person or whatever it is, and then just let it go in that way. But for me, it's also about like, even if there really is no, what is the word? Like, even if there's no like formula, like there's no unfolding from the journaling process and just letting everything come out, if there's no real conclusion or solution, at the very least, I am aware that this is a trigger for me. This is a thought pattern for me. So that the next time it comes up, I can just kind of know that that's my moment to take a deep breath and think about what's next and think about maybe why it's happening, as opposed to just continuing in this like loop of reacting to all the external factors. And it gives you back your control. Like, you know, so people feel so out of control with this stuff. Like they just, you know, like it's dictating their lives. And it's like, that's taking back your control by knowing exactly when it comes up and deciding actively and deliberately how you're going to deal with it. It's like, but how do we do that without self-awareness? That's like what I've been on.
And I'm still working through the process of, you know, it's an ongoing process, as healing is, as I realize these things about myself, and I realize how for a set period of time, I actually was more dedicated to my calendar than to my journal. I was more dedicated to the things I had to do. And I put "had to do" in quotes because I said yes for 1,000 reasons, and not all of them were because I wanted to say yes, right? But I was so dedicated to putting everything in that darn calendar. I'm going to be here for this, and I'm going to do this. And yep, somebody asked me to make cupcakes or whatever it was. And I was like just so honed into that calendar and that timetable. And now, you know, my silver lining that I will continue to say, and I know that I say this from a place of privilege because I've had a job this whole last year. But in that slowing down of the world, I was able to set better boundaries for myself and work away from this being attached to a calendar. And now saying, this is the time that I'm willing to give. This is the energy that I'm willing to give, and blocking off that time rather than just, I was throwing my time away willy-nilly. Like anybody who wanted it, I was going to give it. And you know, some of us are like that. I was a habitual people pleaser. And even though I'm still very much I'm a nurturing person. I want to hug and heal everybody. But I also have to realize I can't, and I can't do it all the time because we come back to why we're here. Self-care is my job. And if I'm not taking care of myself, and I'm not putting all of the effort into putting that self-care as a top priority, I'm really not giving anyone much of anything. They're getting these random willy-nilly tidbits of chaotic energy instead of like this really depthful, heart-giving space that I could be coming from. So it's really been a blessing for me in disguise. And I realized how I'm not an extrovert. I've always thought that I was an extrovert, and I do pretty good at being public. But I realized that being an extrovert was actually a coping mechanism for trauma. And
I cannot even believe you're saying all this.
And it's so tied into like people, they talk about fight or flight, and then now they've started to talk about fawning, right? So I am not a flight person. I'm a fawn or fight. So it was easier for me to recognize traits in people and be able to, in essence, be of service to someone and anticipate other people's needs and be a people pleaser to keep things calm and smooth. And if that didn't go well, then I would fight. That was kind of my go-to. And so other people saw that as me just being energetic and, this extroverted person. You're always in the middle of stuff, and you always know what everybody needs. And I'm realizing, like, oh my gosh, all those years, I never took downtime for myself. And now that I've started taking it, I never want to not take it again. If I'm like, I'm going to take a 2-hour nap on a Saturday, I have no shame anymore. No shame. Oh, I didn't get that done. Whoops. I guess I'll do it tomorrow. I have moved so far.
I make mistakes.
I've moved so far from perfectionism, which I'm also realizing, like, I'm a big picture person and not a details person, which is crazy because I've worked in editing and been a details person. I've worked in huge accounting situations, and been in charge of $20 million, and I've done the details. But that's not where I find joy. I find joy in the greater, bigger things. And I have to realize, like, there are other people out there that like the details. find the people in your tribe who like the details. Let them deal with the details. It's all of this. But if I hadn't started writing these things down about myself as they came up, it would have been a flash in a pan, because I'm a mom of 3 and things go in and out of my brain quickly. And if I hate to say it, but actually I don't hate to say it, I'm becoming more like my mother every day. And my mother is wonderful. I do have to start writing things down or I forget. And it's just how it is. And I wrote a book on journaling. And it literally was one of those things where I popped my eyes open at 3 a.m, couldn't stop thinking about this book, sat down at the computer, and by 8 a.m. I had the first draft. Wow. It was just like everything I'd ever asked myself to get to where I was. Because people always ask me, well, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I don't take no for an answer. I take no as a not now, or maybe not that person, but that doesn't mean that my ask is unreasonable. So if there's something I want to do for myself or for my business, a no doesn't make me stop. No doesn't make me stop. No just means, okay, it's not for that person at this time. And let's go over here. Let's try it under another rock. And to me, it just felt like the natural thing to do. And then I realized that isn't natural for everyone. And so I wrote a book, and it's 52 weeks of journaling. And I did it as 52 weeks because everyone seems to get this feeling that if you're a journaler, you have to journal every day. Like it's Dear Diary every single day. That's not me. That's not how I work.
No, and me either.
Other people are like that either. Just like meditation. People say, oh, I'm going to start meditation. And then they think they need to start at 30 minutes a day. Oh, honey, give yourself a minute.
It's like an all or nothing thing, but it does not have to be all or nothing. A little goes a long way with all of these different forms of self-care. A little goes a long way.
Yeah, 1 minute of mindful breathing will actually change your day. 1 minute of mindful breathing. 1 minute. That could be sitting on the toilet, to be perfectly honest, because as a mother, I will tell you, I cried a lot in bathrooms with locked doors because that was the only self-care I could give myself at times. When you have small children that are all over the place, that cry in a bathroom, no matter how unglorious it seems at the time, that is your self-care. You're getting it out. You're feeling the emotions. You're breathing through it. You're not taking it out on your spawn, your children, your spouse or your partner. That is your self-care. Self-care doesn't have to be glorious. Like, do I love a good bubble bath? Yes, I love a good bubble bath. Do I get a bubble bath every day? No. Every week? No. Every month? Maybe every month. I get it
maybe once a month. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's not, self-care isn't all glamour, and it doesn't have to look like glamour. If you have to go scream in a pillow and like just all out war cry, do it, because it's helping you release. And that's part of that wildly aligned. Like, we don't have to stick in our little status quo cookie cutter of like, this is self-care. I'm going to go for a walk in nature. I'm going to not drink any caffeine, and I'm going to get my nails done today. Like, if that works for you, fantastic. But if that doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean that you're not doing it right.
Yeah. It's not, it doesn't look one particular way. It's very personal. Self-care is a very individual, personal approach to getting yourself okay. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, I completely agree with the having a moment alone in the bathroom. And then, so there always right. There's that you mentioned the guilt. So like, we hear about the concept of mom guilt all the time. I don't necessarily think it only, it only resides as a mom only issue, although it's definitely enhanced because, as women, we are kind of programmed to believe wholeheartedly that we're supposed to sacrifice our own needs for our children. So then when we feel the draw and the calling to not do that, because that's the actual natural way, is that you would of course feel drawn to do things for yourself. So then when you feel that and you act on it, you are up against guilt and potentially even shame for doing it. So you have that added layer. But I think that all people have this kind of programmed limiting belief, pretty much, that self-care is selfish, and that it is like that putting your first is somehow, and mostly women have this, because we're also taught, whether you're a mother or not, we're also taught that like we're for everyone else. Like, I'm here for my partner, I'm here for my family, I have to take care of my family, I have to take care of my kids. Like, we're just for everyone else, and you don't really grow up with the mentality that you're here for you. You are the caregiver, or the, the
Right.
sexy lady, or what, you know what I mean? Like, you're that, you're 100% that bitch. So,
Right.
So then it's hard to break out of that. But it's so funny. I always tell moms, it's like, I hate to tell you this, but the only way to break out of that is self-care. Like, so like,
True.
it's a chicken or the egg situation, lady. Like, you're gonna have to jump into it to break out of it. But anyway,
Yeah.
so you mentioned that, and you have 3 kids. So like, what works for you aside from just, give me something better than sitting on the toilet. Give me something better.
Well, for me,
I will not
I've
accept that as
okay.
your
Well,
form of self-care.
I've been meditating for years now. So for me
Yeah.
to sit and meditate for a half hour is actually glorious, and I can do it. Do
I'm
I
very
always
happy
get to
with
do it?
that.
And
Yeah.
do I always get to do it with quiet? No.
Right. Right.
But we have sort of created boundaries. So this space that I'm in now is a large room in our house, and half of it has my desk and other work stuff, and then I have my yoga space over here where I teach yoga virtually. And it has, now we kind of have a rule that if I'm in my office space, people leave me alone, because it
Yep.
gives me time. Even if I'm reading, 9 times out of 10 I'm reading something that has to do with what I'm working to build.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I'm not just reading necessarily for pleasure. I'm actually taking notes, trying to figure out my next move.
Exactly.
If I'm reading in my office,
Although if
nobody
you were reading for pleasure, that would be good too. You know what I
reading
mean?
for
It doesn't
pleasure,
have
I
to
do
be.
upstairs.
Yes. You're like, "Oh, I do that too."
Oh, I do that too. I just, when I really need to focus, I go into my office, and then nobody
Yeah.
really bothers me until I come out of my office. And then they're like, okay, she's ready to do family stuff again.
Yep.
Granted, I have older children now. My youngest is almost 10. So, I have a different routine. When my children were younger, that was not the case. And for me, what's personally helped is going back to play and nurturing the inner child. So I'm a puddle jumper. And when my kids were little, I would take them out and we would jump in puddles in the rain, because I liked doing it as a kid. It helped me blow off steam. And I mean, wet clothes are wet clothes. Kids are going to get wet anyway.
Yeah.
You
They're
know,
gonna get dirty at some point. It's like, really?
so I would do the same
We're just
thing.
lucky to have well-working washer and dryers, so, put them to work,
Right.
put them to use, and get over it.
Yeah. So I've done that. I have walked to a local park by myself and just sat on the swing for 10 minutes. Sometimes it's taking my dog for a walk rather than sending the kids out to take the dog for a walk, just to have that little bit of alone time to breathe air and just, let everything go. I still, I journal almost every day, not every day, but almost every day. Obviously January's had a lot of big stuff. So I've been, marking the days of like the inauguration and, like, woo, woo, putting my little hearts in my journal about how happy I am.
Celebrating, I think in general, like celebrating little things or big things, that's pretty big, you know, is a form of self-care in my opinion. Like, because I think we forget to, if we don't, it's like a muscle, just like everything else, right? It's like a muscle. If you don't use it or lose it type of thing. And I think we forget to celebrate little things. It's very aligned with a gratitude practice, obviously, like a very similar thing. But it's like, I've been thinking that lately. Like, I think the reason it was coming up for me lately was because I changed my random, but I changed my alcohol consumption habits to be strictly for celebratory reasons. No longer for I need a drink reasons. No longer for self-soothing, no longer for self-medicating, you know, like bottom line, simple. Nobody else drinks in this house besides me because my husband, like every once in a blue, only on super special occasions, like weddings, not even just like a holiday. Like it's got to be like a wedding or like, you know, like something big. So what's happened is like I'm drinking by myself. Like, you know, so but anyway, there was a few things that happened that kind of brought that to light, and then it translated into I'm only going to I'm not going to like shame myself out of ever having a drink for the rest of my life, but I'm going to make sure that it's aligned with some form. That's how you can, I think, create that into either it's for socializing, you know, it's that social element that you're just kind of enhancing a little bit, whether that's with a glass of wine or a cocktail or, you know, a joint or something. You're enhancing it, that socialization and that sort of celebration of connection when you're with a group of people. So in other words, like being the opposite of like drinking by myself, clearly self-medicating. No matter how you spin it all you want. I did it. It's self-medicating. So,
I did it
and this
too.
is coming from somebody who previously sold wine. Not that I'm knocking it at all because it was like this amazing experience for me. But anyway, so it's like, yeah, like finding those moments to celebrate. It happens to me. It's like a muscle that I do actually need to build because I forget to celebrate the small things. I forget to celebrate my own accomplishments, quite frankly. I really, really do. I'll have like accomplished like a whole goal that I like wrote down for the year that was like a whole thing. And I'm like, okay, now it's done.
Yep. What's the next
and I'm
thing
just
on my
like,
list?
what am I doing? Anyway.
I was that way for a long time as well. And I also used alcohol to self-medicate and self-soothe before I realized my healing abilities. I couldn't understand why I always felt so strongly, like things just, you know, and sometimes I know things about people like you shouldn't know, things like that. It's like, I don't like it. And I drank. I drank off and on for years. You know, I come from a household where my father's an alcoholic, and that created, well, you know, a lot of my childhood trauma. And one day it just hit me, and I was like, you got to choose. You got to choose. Either you're going to continue to drink and do this cycle over and over and over and over and over again, or you're not. And so next week here will be my 1 year of sobriety. And it's been amazing. And I don't miss it at all. I also realized that, again, I'm blessed because I don't have cravings. I don't have the certain characteristics that other people who struggle with alcoholism have. For me, it's very minimal. And I like tea and kombucha and things like that. And, you know, it's all gotten me through. But I also know that as I took alcohol out of my life, my healing and the Reiki and the things that I do with clients has progressed exponentially. I have a much better connection now, and I get a lot more information when I'm working for people that I didn't have before because there was always like this fogginess, and now I've eliminated that. So I don't know. Do I think that I'll never drink again? I honestly, in my head, I do plan on like having a glass of champagne at like my children's large celebrations at some point in life, whether that's weddings, grandbabies, college graduations, whatever it is. If we're celebrating, it's like I feel like if a bottle of champagne is open, I'm going to have a sip of champagne. But I will never be a daily drinker again. And I don't even, that'll be 10 years from now, maybe. I hope. Weddings, yeah. 10 years from now.
Yeah, that's like the perfect, big celebrations. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It makes more sense. But I mean, congrats. That's a big accomplishment. I took a month off in October, and I'm mostly taking this month off. There was one occasion that was very celebratory because I hadn't seen my two best friends in, months, #COVID shit. So I'm like, my one friend one of my best friends is a nurse, and she's in a COVID unit, and she was quarantining for the longest time, and we're just generally still, pretty careful over here. So I said, no. I said, I don't know when I'm going to see you guys again. So we're going to make a night of it. Anyway. So yeah, there's all these things that start to happen. So you mentioned therapy. I want to talk about that, and I want to make sure we talk a little bit more about meditation because I'm super intrigued by that. I'm probably earlier on in my the growth of my meditation practice than most people think that I am, just because I'm a yoga instructor and I do, I'll always facilitate that. So that I think has brought me to a place where like I can comfortably meditate, and just like you, like I really enjoy it. Like it's not a struggle anymore. I don't resist it. But again, my kids are younger. They're 5 and 2. So it makes it really complicated sometimes to but anyway, since I started on that already, I'll just continue down this meditation road. So yeah, and I've been talking to like a couple other moms that I'm kind of like, subtly coaching in meditation lately, of like the concept of not getting so frustrated with yourself when the thoughts come in and you're not, and just that general concept of like, you're not trying to master anything. You're not, doing meditation, you're practicing meditation. There's a reason that we call it a practice. It is not, it's not something to master or perfect. And literally by becoming aware of the urges to get up, or the urges to do, or the thoughts and worries and anxieties that come in, and and then just becoming aware of it, and just like, thank you very much for the reminder. I'll get back to you later. And becoming a witness to it, like kind of being able to be outside of that. Not only is that a practice in mindfulness and presence in itself, so you're like building that muscle by saying, okay, like I get it. You're there. This thought is there, but like I'm over here. Like I see you, but I'm over here, and I'm gonna be here for a few more minutes. Like you are literally right. You are literally you're literally stepping back away from this whirlwind of chaos that's swirling with all these thoughts and emotions and friggin', old feelings and anxiety. Stepping back. So like think about like actually embodying that. I try to, like you are actively coming home to yourself. You are saying, I'm more than that. I'm over here. You're like coming home to your true self. And but I totally get the resistance in the beginning of feeling like you're failing at it, but like you're really in the practice of it, and you're building that muscle. It's uncomfortable. It's just like a workout where you're like, oh God, like I'm gonna be sore tomorrow. I'm pissed off. But it's like, so there's that little discomfort in the growth, just like anything else. Like can't get something for nothing. You got to sit in a little bit of awkwardness if you want the eventual benefit, right? So anyway, I been even having those conversations with like other people about their like beginning that process has made me more aware. So it's brought me back to my practice, and I'm kind of like definitely enhancing that. And I just started therapy recently, talk therapy for the first time in my life, and I'm super excited. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, and she blew my mind last week because she was like talking about her meditation practice, and she was like, what about the 5 minutes when you pull up in the driveway before you come in the house? If if I'm alone or if the kids are sleeping or whatever it is. And I'm like, here you go again, Sam. You were trying to be a perfectionist about it, because same total recovering perfectionist over here. Always consistently in recovery, where I now have become aware that I was doing that. Oh, I was trying to come sit right here every time. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, that's not going to be available to me all the time. Grab those pockets. This is, again, practice what you preach. I always talk about grabbing those little pockets of time throughout the day, especially as mothers. So she blew my mind. I was like, oh, and all throughout this past week, I mean, still, it still didn't happen every day. Again, to be clear, I did not meditate every single day this week, but there were definitely more little pockets of time that I was able to pinpoint and say, oh, and I don't care if it's 3 minutes. There's a benefit to it. It's very clear. So anyway, that's been my whole thing. Please talk to me about. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah,
like
when
I go and pick up my child from school, and I'm waiting in the car park in the little line that parents wait in. That's my time. I've got 5 minutes to sit there. I got nothing that I need to be doing. It's a great reprieve for me because I've worked all morning, since I did the school drop off. And now, before my child gets in the car, I have a moment to like sit and decompress and like reset my intentions. How do I want to show up for the rest of the day? It has allowed me to have much more fruitful conversations with my pre-teenage girl, who's a little angsty some days. I don't know. We're all over. It's all over. But it allows me to like be there in the moment with her because I'm like, okay, this is all gonna just go away for a moment, and I'm gonna refocus. But I know when I started meditation, or maybe I should take it back. I got into meditation because I had gotten into practicing yoga. And when you go into your final savasana, I realized like this is okay. So you've got this 5, 10, however many minutes you take, depending on whether you're taking a class in a studio or you're doing a practice at home. You've got this time now where your body is integrating. And I started getting used to this time, like, oh, okay, like, and of course, the first couple times is like I'm going through the grocery list and the to-do list and I should buy this and what am I getting so and so for their birthday next month? The whole list is, we got that monkey mind going on. But the longer I practiced yoga and the more I got used to the final shavasana and going into that, going, okay, it's time to like just
it's coming.
Feel into it and let it be. And so I started to use that time for myself. And that is what helped me build my practice, because I was like, okay, that time is already built in to yoga. It's already there. And then I was able to start taking it outside. And when I started to take it outside of the yoga mat, the first couple times I had, the voice recorder on your phone, I just kind of set it on record and I just set it in front of me. And if something would pop into my mind, I would just say it.
Oh my God, that is good.
And let it go. So it's like, my parents' anniversary is coming up. I need to get a card. Just say it. And then I'd sit there and I, just let my mind go. If something else popped in, I would say it. But then I had a recording. If there was something that it was important that was sitting on me, I had a recording. I could go back and be like, okay, I got to get these. I got to make sure I get this card. I write it on my calendar. Like when I'm at the store next, make sure you get this card. But it was all out of my head. And it was in a way that I could use it for myself. but it didn't take me out of meditation because I wasn't opening my eyes to go back to write it in a journal, which is one way that you can do it. I mean, that's definitely works. Open your eyes, write it down real quick, and then go back to your meditation. But having that recording was, I mean, it was night and day for how much more I was able to do and how much longer I was.
That is such a good idea, because I will literally, like, granted, I've come to a place where, like, I'm less concerned now, right? Because I can trust that if it's a really important thing, it's going to come up for me again. So like but there's some days that I 50% believe that, and some days that 100% believe that. So there are days where I'm like, well, shit, what if I don't remember that thing that just came up for me? And again, sometimes it's not even a to-do item. Sometimes it's a genuinely good idea. Like it's a response to like something that's already been in my head. So that is so smart. I can't believe I never thought of that, just to say it, because then you're not, because most of the time I will jot things down, anything that did stick with me, I'll jot it down real quick right after.
Right.
But not having to worry at all about not remembering this thing that popped up that will just, you can go right back in. You can go right back into your breath or whatever and really feel like, oh, okay, like I've moved on. Oh, wow.
Right.
Good.
And then I've taken that on the road. So when I'm driving, which, before COVID, I did travel quite a bit. And the nearest airport's an hour away. So I'd have those lulls where I was alone in the car. And sometimes that's where my best ideas come, when I can't write in a journal. And so I would do the same thing. I'd hit that that voice record, and I would just talk it all out to myself until I got to a place where I could jot it down. I mean, again, technology, when it's working, sometimes it's just amazing.
Yes, seriously. And like yes. So I was just gonna say, sometimes you get in the loop of using it a little too, like lately for me, it's been too much consuming, not enough creating, where I'm like, scrolling. And it's like, like if you create your social network, if you really make it your own, where you're looking at strictly inspirational and like, like really, things that light you up, that type of content, and like right up your alley stuff, it could be wonderful, but you still have to be mindful of not getting sucked in. I agree. It's like just a time suck. But anyway, so what was the other thing you said? So Shavasana or Savasana, like what a beautiful way, because we both are yoga instructors. Like what a beautiful way to ease yourself into meditation, because especially for me, because for years I practiced, which now I realize was not probably the best thing for me, but for years I practiced hot power flow. And so that Shavasana was a welcome part. Like, I'm like, you cannot wait to get down there. So it's like, you're so waiting for it. You're like, so looking forward to it. And then they put the cool eucalyptus towel on your head at the studio where I trained. It's like, it was this whole experience. But and all these places and all these approaches are all very different. But it was a wonderful experience for me. And I looked forward to it. And therefore, I wasn't trying to like run away from that 5-minute Shavasana where you are, literal corpse pose. You are laying, hands, palms down. Maybe you have a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly if you're, guided to, or if you're invited to, you can still keep that connection, but you're attempting to totally submit your body into the earth, where you are not using any muscle groups. So it's giving you're looking forward to it, but it's also creating that ability to become self-aware. Like you are deliberately going into the body, getting out of the head, going into the body, making any little physical adjustments that you need, becoming a witness to the physical or emotional tensions that are going on, and just allowing it to take its, to let it go, really allowing it to settle on down. But so, yeah, what a beautiful way to intro yourself into a meditation practice, because in most cases, you like you said, it's built into your yoga class. You have nothing else on your schedule for that 5 or 10 minutes. You can so you look forward to it and you just do it so you can slowly become a little bit more comfortable with that presence practice. Because unfortunately, it is what it is. We live in a society that literally only rewards doing and producing and delivering. So
Right.
you can't get out of that matrix by yourself. You have to, there has to be, you actually can, but like you need to have a plan.
Right.
Like it needs to be deliberate. You need to deliberately decide, I'm going to take the time to do this because it's going to allow me to come back to myself and make time for myself.
Right.
So promoting the yoga for both of us. Yoga, do it.
Absolutely. And when I teach, I do remind people, like, this is your time. Set an intention, give thanks to your body for all that it does for you, not just today and here on the mat, but every single day, every hour that you are alive. Like, your body is like this miraculous piece of machinery that we still don't truly know how it all works, and yet it does. And give thanks for that and really feel into it. Because once you start to, I hated my body for years. That's a whole nother conversation.
I
But
know. I wanted to go into the body positivity. I'm like, whatever. Rock and roll.
I had 3 kids, and all of them ended up being by C-section. So I have a stomach that it's just not going to ever do or look the way it once did. And oh God, I hated that for so long. I just hated on my body. And then of course, and I'll say it, like, I just all of a sudden one day it was like the universe gave me this like come to Jesus meeting of like, excuse you, your body has done every single thing it was meant to do. You have 3
That's
healthy
awesome.
children. Why are you such an ungrateful bitch?
Yes.
Get with it.
Yes.
Start loving yourself and stop comparing, because everyone's here to do something different, and that's our gift.
Yeah.
My body is working as it's supposed to, and I need to start treating it better, both inside and out, both with the words I use when I talk about myself, as well as what I ingest and how I move my body. It's all part of self-care. And loving your body is self-care.
Yeah. Like actually doing it. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Yeah. Not saying you're going to do it, or or like you mentioned, like a lot of the self-care that we are marketed is things like going and buying yourself a new outfit, or going or getting, the leggings that suck you in, or whatever, like that type of thing, or going to get a pedicure, getting your hair did, and da 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 da. And yes, not saying that that's a problem. I mean, it is a problem for me, but like you just like it might not be the thing that you actually need to love yourself. Like, so in other words, if you need to have the perfect pedicure or the perfect outfit to feel good about yourself, if anything, it might, I don't pretend to know everything about everybody's life, but it might be a sign that you have other work to do on loving yourself, whether the fuck you have your nails did or not, quite frankly.
Right. And I don't wear Spanx or anything like that. And in fact, 2020, part of that liberation of 2020 is I quit wearing bras.
Hallelujah.
And so if I have to go out in public, where it's going to be fairly noticeable, a dress I'm wearing or something, I have definitely moved to the bralettes. And that's really, again, about loving my body. I don't know who told me that my boobs needed to come up to my chin and have cleavage all the time, but I do know that I've nursed 3 babies. Again, My body's doing everything that it needed to do. And I've had so many people I know under the age of 40 that have come down with breast cancer, and it's always ended up being something in the lymph nodes under the arms, the underwire bra and stuff.
Yeah, everything is stagnant. There needs to be that natural motion.
Right. And so I was like, why do I do this to myself? I'm not going to do it anymore. And, I always disliked my stomach, and I was just like, I'm over it. And if I wear a tight dress and someone sees my stomach, they're just going to have to get over it for themselves, because I'm not going to wear Spanx to make somebody else feel better about how I look.
Yeah.
I don't care. I feel good. Let it be.
Yeah. Yes. Hallelujah. Oh my God. It's so true. Like, I'm telling you, I've been having these conversations lately, and I won't even go too far down the road right now because we've been on for almost an hour. But there is, a lot of the work I've been doing and a lot of the conversations I've been having. I'm starting to not just realize, but remember actually that for me, this is like it's a women's issues conversation. And there's always a piece of that. It does come back to it. And it's not to make things, I don't know, like to alienate men or to make it like this feminine movement or like anything like that. It's just that it needs to be addressed, that there are too many unrealistic standards, not only for our bodies as women, but our whole lives, like I said before, like being this very outward, thinking approach as to what we look like and what we do on our day to day, all based on your family, your partner, other men, whatever it is. It's all very outward and not enough inward. I think so many people deal with it. It's not only women, but I think that there are these standards for women that do end up causing some emotional trauma that we have to address. And these type of conversations, therefore, are extremely necessary.
I agree. And
anyway,
I think in a lot of stuff we do, and this goes back to kind of everything we've talked about as we work through our own trauma. A lot of that is ancestral trauma, right? So we are taking on these thoughts and beliefs from the generations before us. And as a mother, I want to shake that up, and I want my kids to, so I look at it this way: if I'm comfortable in my own skin, my children can be comfortable in their own skin, because there are men who also deal with body issues. We have all of, or not all, but obviously there's body dysmorphia for a lot of individuals, trans and non-trans, depending on how you see yourself in a mirror. And I think showing that I'm okay with how I show up gives them that ability to be like, how do I show up, and am I okay with it? And they know that they can change it at any time. I'm not going to judge them for how they choose to show up for themselves. And it's just shaking up that little bit of what we've learned and choosing better for ourselves and for the next generations.
Yeah. We need to pave the road for it being a very personal decision how you are as it sounds ridiculous that I actually have to say that. Right. I would like to pave the road that it is a personal decision how you show up in the world.
Right. If you shave your legs or don't shave your legs. If you shave your armpits or don't shave your armpits.
According to your
get a Brazilian or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's so that therefore there is healing that needs to come into play. Yeah, I mean, even in my more recent discoveries as far as my new venture into talk therapy, that's going to be big. It's going to be a big conversation. I keep saying I've been laughing at myself. I always laugh at myself. I laugh at myself because over the past 5 years I have done a lot of what part of it I didn't know it was spiritual growth, but in reality now I can see it's been a lot of spiritual growth. Now you know, like connections that I wasn't comfortable making before, that I had the, you know, certain feelings and desires and a calling inside of me that I wasn't comfortable with because of generational, you know, ideas that were taught to me from previous, you know, from past generations. But it's only now that I'm coming to a place where I'm like, oh, but there's so much more growth. There's so much more healing. In other words, here's what I'm trying to say. I thought I was healing. There were parts, you know, there were parts of it that were very healing for me, but I was just growing. And now I'm like a overgrown houseplant that needs to figure the fuck out like what shape I'm really supposed to be by maybe trimming away I need some pruning. So now I need to let go of all that shit, because now I'm ready to like really come into this like wholehearted, like like this is who I really am and have always been. I know now, but I can't do it unless I let go of so much shit. You know, does that make sense? So it's like so funny. Like 5 years later, I'm like, oh.
And I don't think you're alone. I think that's a huge shift that a lot of people are making in this new year, like this whole age of Aquarius business. Like we've all been doing so much work, and I mean, we've been healing, we've been doing the work, but then it was like we hit this, whoosh, okay, now it's time to shit or get off the pot, make a decision, take away the stuff that's already starting to fall away and crumble. Stop trying to hold on to it. Stop trying to pull shit back that really isn't for you. And get aligned. Get aligned and get going.
Get aligned. Seriously. Get aligned. From wildly aligned and aligned heart. Get your shit organized.
That's right. Get your ducks. I mean, if you can't get them in a line, at least get them in the same pond.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like, let's just come into one side or the other. I agree 100%. But it's true. Like, you know, this is a rough time for all of us, but it is definitely an opportunity to sit down alone and just be with you for a little while, and not just be having all of the external factors be what's dictating your day to day and how you're and your thoughts. We can't even go down that road right now, but that's all I'm going to say. So then the last thing is I want to give you an opportunity for any final thoughts and to tell us where we can find you. But yeah, like anything that you feel like you need to bring home here.
I think the final thought is that your healing and your self-care is truly your own journey. And because it is your own journey, feel free to try everything on for size, because, and you know, play with it. And again, then make notes, like take that bath. How did it make you feel? If that's not how self-care, you know, you're just like, it was just a bath. I was just soaking myself.
Yeah,
it really
like
wasn't
really
a bag of chips. Move on, try something else until you find those things that you can really put into your bag of self-care. And when you find those gaps, you can be like, you know what, I've got time for this. I've got time for this 5-minute meditation as I'm sitting in the car park, or I've got time for, you know, singing at the top of my lungs to this song because I'm stuck behind a train, or you know, whatever it is that you have time for, then you can pull those out and use them, you know, as often as you need to. And if it happens that you have to use it in a bathroom, do it. Like if you gotta go cry in the stall, go do it. Just go do it.
Wherever you can close a door, like closet.
Make it your space. Do what you gotta do.
Yeah. I love this so much. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this conversation right now. I want to thank you. Honestly, I hope we can do this again. I'm even thinking that maybe next month, if you would be interested, because next month, you know, we're talking about mind, body, and spirit for January, February, March. And it might be great to have a conversation about body positivity, like go a little bit further into that whole side of things and self-love, as far as that perspective about, you know, really loving your body next month. I don't know if you'd be interested, but
Of course
That's
I would.
my invitation.
I'm honored to be here. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Um, I always say I'm not a guru, I'm a guide. I'm here to help as many people as I can help. So if that means I speak to you again next month or the month after, so be it, because your crowd is going to reach a certain spectrum and my crowd's going to reach a certain spectrum. And it just allows us to share our knowledge and our wealth of love with more people. So thank you so much for allowing me to share myself and some of what I do. You can find me on Instagram at wildly.aligned.wellness. My website is charmainehouck.com. Feel free to reach out, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram or just emailing me through my website. I do oracle readings, tarot readings. I do distance Reiki, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. I also truly am drawn to work with youth, especially queer youth, because I'm a bisexual woman and there wasn't a lot for me to go on when I was 14. So I'm always here to help and hold space for others who are working through their own healing. So yeah, I'd be happy to help anyone.
I love that. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. Definitely subscribe to the channel for more videos on yoga, meditation, all things self-care for true self-alignment, mind, body, soul. Say it with me. Self-care is my job.